Well, I can tell you with some surety that absolutely nobody expected this. You know, the best hope scenario in CCHQ amongst the Tories at one stage of the campaign was a 30-40 seat majority. Certainly yesterday, when the votes were all being pushed out and people were going to the polling stations, they'd take any majority at all. Majority of one, they were very happy. They were very, very worried indeed. So this is a shock to Tories as it is for anybody else. Why did it happen? I think there are two reasons at the moment we can look at. If you started to look down the numbers of the seats and what happened where. I suppose the tactical reason is the Remain vote was divided. Seats like Kensington, Remain Labour vote, the Remain Lib Dem vote, all split, roughly half each, and that allowed Tories through the middle. That happened all over the country. The Brexit vote was united. That almost always went Tory, where the Remain vote was split. That's given the Tories dozens more seats than they would have. But I think the second reason, which is as important, is the character and the personality of Boris Johnson himself. It was a presidential campaign. He was everywhere. The cabinet was nowhere. This was all about him. If they won, it would have been him. If they lost, it would have been him. And he has a cut through, and we picked this up on the campaign trail. It was fascinating. He has a cut through with people, unlike any other leader I've seen, certainly in the last sort of 10 years, really going back to Blair. People like him as a human being. They think he's all right, but you say, but he's a bit posh and he's had all these affairs with different women. But they say, no, he's a good bloke, I'd like to buy him a pint, I'd like to go for a drink with him. They clearly didn't feel that about Jeremy Corbyn, not in these sort of seats that the Tories took in their droves, and that I think made a massive difference. It's a spectacular realignment of British politics, really down class and identity lines, if you like. The old politics used to be Tories would win in the more prosperous south, more middle class south. Labour would win in the more working class, less prosperous north. That has been turned on its head in this general election. The most extraordinary election, certainly in my 10 years as a political editor. So you now have really the Labour vote, Lib Dem vote, concentrated only in the big cities, Manchester, London, Bristol, a bit of Birmingham, and really the Tories are everywhere else, no matter what the community is. And that's substantial. The Tories are now unquestionably the party of the working classes, the party of the workers, through identity reasons, cultural reasons, and Brexit obviously is pretty big. And Labour are the party of what now appears to be the shrinking middle classes. What happens next is quite interesting because we never actually had Boris Johnson governing normally as a Prime Minister. Ever since he was elected in the summer, he's been campaigning largely for this general election, but also on Brexit. So, the real Boris Johnson will stand up. He has now got the seats to do whatever it is he wants, hire and fire whoever he wants. So it's going to be really quite interesting. Clearly, Brexit is no longer in doubt. That will go ahead with some firm guarantee we can give on January the 31st. Then there is the trade deal to negotiate. That's obviously the huge next task of 2020, all 11 months he's got of it left. And that's going to be very tough indeed. Again, the big thing for Boris tonight now is he's got this huge cushion, this huge majority of whatever it turns up in the 60s, 70s, and that allows him to no longer be dependent on people like the ERG, the European Research Group, the hardline Tory Brexiteers. He can do what he wants. He can even cut them away and still have the votes to get whatever his deal is through Parliament. So a softer Brexit deal, I think, is now highly likely. A bit more regulatory alignment with the EU for a bit more market access, a lot of deep security cooperation, even if it does mean those hated Euro judges get to preside over it. So the win isn't just important, it's the huge size of the win that will also dictate how he governs the next 5 years. I think he will be driven by those seats he's won, that the Labour wall he's smashed to pieces, those seats from Darlington to Bishop Auckland to Lee in Greater Manchester, and he will feel particularly beholden to repay what they've shown in him, not least because the Tories now want this to be a coalition of new voters they can hold together for 10, 15 years, whether or not it's Boris Johnson still in charge. But to do that, they need to deliver for them. That doesn't mean tax cuts for higher earners. That doesn't mean shrinking the state. That means more state spending. That means tax cuts for lower earners. That means a lot more infrastructure in the north, so more train lines, more roads. HS2 undoubtedly will now go ahead because you can't really cut that, which would massively benefit the north. So I think we'll see, what probably will end up being pretty much like a Blairite government, a quite centre ground government, a lot of high spending and a lot of being nice to a whole load of people. Interestingly, though, he does have a major problem after the end tonight. It's not, everything is beautiful and rosy, although it looks pretty good, and that's the union. So look at Scotland. Scotland has gone almost entirely SNP, almost entirely Scottish nationalist. He's going to have an unbelievable job on his hands holding off the SNP and their demand for a second Scottish independence referendum. Look at Northern Ireland. It looks the DUP having a bad night, Sinn Féin having a good night. Northern Ireland could well end up with a majority of nationalists, in other words, pro-Irish republicanism and pro-Irish unity. So you've got two great big chunks of the UK. He's going to have a hell of a fight in his hands to hold together. He's won England comfortably and Wales too. If he can keep the United Kingdom together after this, because that may have been the price he's just paid, we don't know, but that's going to be the fascinating question in the next 2 or 3 years.
Perfect.